It went from high anxiety to controlled pandemonium, going from the last week to the last few days till the very end. What we needed to do is just make sure that we were facilitating this evolution of this evacuation, which was ultimately supposed to just go from Tonsanut. It was never intended to go out of the embassy. That was not the plan.
There was a lot of havoc and disarray in the streets. People knew what was going on. Things were happening. People were starting to come to the country. Da Nang fell, and that was it. It just de-escalated. Everything went downhill from there. After Da Nang fell, you could hear sporadic artillery fire in that direction. You could see it in the people within the city. There was a lot of panic. You could feel it.
The end was near, and especially as the communists advanced, and the key to the whole war all the time was the Central Highlands. And when the Central Highlands fell, that was it. We knew that time was shot.
People were beginning to mass around the U.S. Embassy compound. 1,600 hours. I was posted to the ambassador's residence as a radio communicator. We received word about 10 p.m. that night that we would not be relieved, that we were there for the overnight watch as well.
We were waking up by incoming, probably around between 3:30 and 4 in the morning. They really hit the ammo dumps or fuel dumps at Tonsanut Air Base. And the sky was just on fire. I remember going to the bunker, in that area there, in the patio of the residence, and looked up in the sky, and the whole sky was just on fire.
That night, the airport was getting hit hard. They were getting hit with artillery, and the airport was getting hit with rockets. We had heard that there was some ground engagement out in the periphery. Just all hell broke loose out there. And then we got word that 2 Marines had been killed out there. That was Darwin Judge and Charlie McMahon.
We got a call from the ambassador. He didn't believe that the airstrip was rocketed beyond recognition, and we could still do a fixed wing evac. So we took a ride up to Tonsanut by full motorcade. He got all the information he needed, took a look at the airstrip. During that time, there was rockets flying around. I actually saw a rocket fly over the complex, and I had made a comment, God, if you could just, I'll do what I got to do, but just get my bones out of country. That's all I ask you.
I think, as we look back at it now, that was pretty much the NVA's final message to say, all right, it's time. Your time has come.
We exited and went back to the embassy. Things were starting to get hectic with the city. All the refugees were starting to surround the embassy. Everybody was panicking. They all wanted to get out because they knew we were leaving. The ambassador assumed we still had time. There was time for negotiations.
I think they realized at that point that evacuation wasn't going to go from there. It all had to be brought back to the embassy. The ambassador probably was the most resistant to that whole concept, but they didn't want Americans to be seen as giving up and leaving. So he held on until it was too late.
So then by 11 o'clock I had gotten a call from the ambassador to come up and see him, so I went into his office, and he said, I want you to do something for me. I said, yes, sir. And he said, I want you to take my wife to Ambassador Sullivan's summer residence in Manila and stay with her till I get there. And I said, yes, sir, but my mission is to stay here with you. And that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to see it through, but he was pretty stern about it. He said, this is what I want you to do. I'm asking you to do this for me. So I followed the order. I took his wife, and I was evacuated probably before noontime with his wife and a couple other staffers' wives. We ended up landing on the command ship for the U.S. 7th Fleet, USS Blue Ridge, and we stood there and waited for the ambassador to come back.
The 9th Amphibious Brigade from one of the ships was called in to support us. And this is all around the time they decide, okay, it's going to happen here.
I want to say the first choppers that did arrive That's when they brought in Marines from the fleet. You know, there was just no way that the 48 Marines that were stationed at the embassy could maintain the crowd controlled.
It had gone from high anxiety now to a sort of a low level of panic where people were trying to get over the walls to get into the embassy compound with the thought that they would be evacuated out of there.
I'd say there were probably upwards of 5,000–6,000 people outside that compound, just trying to climb the wall, trying to get inside the compound, you know, just looking for that ride, you know, to freedom.
There were a lot of people who were just pressed against this big iron vehicle gate, hoping that we would open that gate and let them in.
They were offering you gold, they were offering you cash.
You know, you don't take me, but take my child.
They're saying to you, take my child. If you can't take me, take my child. And you had no answer for them.
On the roof, we had the 46s go doing evac, and on the embassy parking lot, they had 53s.
We were loading people on, the helicopters were leaving, coming in, loading, leaving, coming in.
I'd say normally you'd probably get 28 Marines fully loaded with gear into each helicopter. Conservatively, I'd say we were putting 45 to 50 Vietnamese people in each helicopter.
This was going on over and over and over and over again. It kind of went like that throughout the night, just trying to get everybody we had in that compound out. And so as it got late, we were still evacuating a lot of people, but then sometime in the morning we got word that there was only going to be a few more helicopters.
Word came down that we were no longer doing lifts of Vietnamese personnel. It was get the last remaining troops off the ground.
Ambassador Martin had to go, and if he didn't want to go, they were going to arrest him and take him.
The ambassador left. It was between 4:30 and 5 in the morning. Top Valdez gave the word that we were going to slowly pull back from the perimeter.
We formed 3 arcs around the main door of the embassy.
And we just slowly backstepped into the embassy.
As we moved back toward the door, all the people who were staged to go realized that we were leaving. And so they rushed the door.
Closed the gate behind us when we had a head count, knowing that we had everybody inside. We left probably 450, maybe 500 people selected to get out. We left them sitting in the corner of the lot. We made our way back into the embassy, closed the door, and we made our way up the stairwells.
So we get all the Marines are now out on the rooftop, and the decision was made. All the support Marines go first. It's kind of like, this is our ship, you know, we're the embassy, this is our embassy, we go last. So now the helicopters are coming in. The Marines that are on the roof are being staged, and they're going up to the helipad, and then they're being flown out.
We heard this large crash, and when we looked over the wall of the roof, we'd seen that they had taken the fire truck. They drove the truck through the door.
Blew the doors down, and they started running up to when they knew where we were. They started going the stairs, flying up.
On the rooftop, there were these very large, old-fashioned fire extinguishers. Took some lockers and we rolled them over along with these fire extinguishers against that door so they couldn't open, remembering that the door opened in.
We threw CS gas grenade, you know, we threw a couple of grenades in there just to get them to breathe that, and hopefully they'd back off and go the other way.
There were a number of helicopters that come in. We got some more of those support Marines out. And then the helicopters just stopped coming.
Say 35, 40 of us still sitting on the roof waiting to go. All the grunts had already been gone.
You know, when that last chopper left, we just waited and waited and waited for another chopper to come back, and it never did. And then I said we could hear the tanks rolling in down. And
Major Keno, he brought us. We were sitting on that roof, and we were waiting. And he turned around and said, "Look," he said, "we're Marines. We're going to defend what we need to defend, and we'll die like Marines." And I think that's when the reality hit that I think we're in trouble here.
Everybody has fear. Fear is a very normal and sometimes helpful emotional reaction to a threat. Courage is about how you manage fear. And on that roof, I gotta believe everybody felt very vulnerable.
Finally, we saw the helicopters, a couple of gunships escorting them. First one landed.
And the first group went in, the first chopper went off, and I think the first one came in at like 7:30 or something like that. And then I went left, and the next one came in about, I think it's 7:45, give or take.
I got on the helicopter. Helicopter lifted off. I remember asking the guy across from me what time it was. He said it was, I remember he said it was 07:35.
As he made the pitch, and we looked out the rear door, you could see columns of tanks, the support trucks, you could see other people undressing, and those were the South Vietnamese soldiers that just gave up and said, "Ooh," and they just clothes laying on the street, boots laying on the street.
A lot of people still at the embassy. People still tons of people, but I imagine once they saw the last one off, that they said, "Oh my God, we're left here." So
when we landed on the ship, I felt, okay, we're safe now. I remember going down below to the hangar deck. That hangar deck was a sea of humanity. I mean, it was just women and children. It's all full of Vietnamese refugees. It was absolutely amazing.
You knew you were leaving, and it was a terrible way to leave, the way we had to go, and leave a lot of people behind and leave the country. We were allies, and we just pretty much picked up and left. I mean, the North Vietnamese let us go, obviously. Of course, they knew the whole fleet was out there, so they couldn't really mess with us. But their intentions was to let us go and get our people out of the country. I think that's why it went so well.
You just turned your back and you walked away. Essentially, we're probably 10 lifts away from finishing, the job, so to speak.
When I think back on it, what I think is we very successfully fulfilled our mission. It all fell apart around us, but we didn't fall apart. We did what we were trained to do. And for that, myself and I hope all Marines are very proud of that.